live stream right now. I just wanted to kind of now, since I got the initial kind of thing started up, I wanted to go over pretty much the bare basics of organizing and going through a FTX. So that stands for field training exercise, and it's going to be a lot different than a standard military field training exercise. It's going to be going in more of the aspect of a militia, patriot group, prepper group, in those main aspects, just because a majority of those groups are very limited on the amount of time that they have to devote to training, because most of us aren't getting paid to do this. We're not getting any type of incentive to doing this besides the actual knowledge. So right here is just going to be kind of going through pretty much a flow carbon copy of one of our training exercises to give you an example of some of the things that we do for a training exercise, so that it might help your group, or it might help you go through establishing whenever you get your group started, or if you're starting up your group, to kind of enhance your guys' curriculum as you're going through it. So right now, one of the few things that you want to do before you even hold the event is you want to have a few things established beforehand. So some of the three things, or four things I should really say, is going to be you want to pre-stage your gear. So all the necessary gear that you're going to need, targets, medical treatment aid, or you might need a certain type of, like say for example, if you're doing vehicle training, you might want to have a secondary vehicle stage. You want to have your secondary training gear. So say for example, if you have people that have minimal gear, that don't have gear, you might want to pre-stage gear for them. So what that will do is that'll give them the chance to train and take away the excuse of, oh, I don't have gear for this, I don't have this, when you can say, oh, here you go. Now all you have to do is show up, and if you want to, you can even go pick them up. So that kind of eliminates the amount of people that are not going to be showing up because they're kind of limited in what they have. That's why our group normally has about 2 or 3 full extra issue loadouts that we can do, give you a plate carrier, chest rig, ruck, full pack of necessary aid, whether it be MREs, sleep system, cold weather gear, things along those basic lines, to get them the basics of what they need, just to allow them to continue throughout the training on the bare essentials. So pretty much, and after that is once you have the gear staged, to where you have everybody has their gear staged, everybody has it organized. You want to make sure that everybody's somewhat standardized in your gear. So this will get kind of involved into later, but what I mean is one of the biggest things is establishing to make sure that everybody has their IFACs in pretty much a similar place or a similar order. That way if something does happen, you're not looking all over them trying to find their medical gear or something like that. They can just delve right into it because you know exactly where it is on them. So the next thing is going to be your PACE, which is going to be your primary means of communication, your alternative, your contingency, and then your emergency. So that could be your primary is going to be your radio, then a secondary channel on the radio or a backup radio. Then you have your contingency, which could be your phone, and then your emergency, which could be like a hand flare or something like that in case things go really bad. Then you have your proper notice. This way everybody knows what they need to do for their, we try to do it at least at a bare minimum of a month or 31 days ahead of time before the event has taken place. That way that gives them a chance to get all their gear, get the ammunition that they need, the food, the gas and everything in order, the spare cash on hand if they need to afford gas. That way that you know that they're ready for the event whenever it takes place. And with that pre-notices, you want to have your timeline of the event out to them so they know what's going to happen, so they know what gear that they're going to need, and they're pretty much set up ahead of time before the event happens. That way they're not trying to scramble ahead the day before, the night before, or even at the event itself. So the last thing is going to be establishing a contingency. So what that means is, like, say for example, you're the primary instructor and something happens to you, you get in a car accident, you have a family emergency or something like that, another member of the group can immediately pick up that timesheet that you put out ahead of time and take up and teach the event for you, which is why you want to have training every one of your members to be leaders so that they can pick up at any time to continue onto the training events. So the next thing after that is going to be starting out with the actual event itself. Is you want to kind of start earlier in the morning. So we try to do ours around 8 o'clock just because it's a statewide group. So we have groups coming in from all over the states, 4 hours away, 3 hours away, 2 hours away, 5 hours away. So giving people ample time to drive is one thing we try to do, but for the most part, 8, 9 o'clock is about the time that we like to start. So what you want to do is you want to try to devote a little bit of time for that basic meet and greet, maybe 30 minutes, 15 minutes, so that everybody can get that little bit of chatter out of them, to where it's like, oh, I got this new rifle, I got this new piece of gear, check it out. Kind of get that little bit of a meet and greet done and over with, so you're not spending the entire day doing that, so you can devote it to training. After that, you want to kind of go to your gear up or pre-training inspection, pre-training check. That way everybody knows that they have their gear. They've got a checklist of all their gear on hand. That way they know if they lose something after the event, they can go back through and, okay, I lost this, maybe I need to go back and find it. That way you try to leave as much of a minimal impact on the training area as possible, especially if you're training on public land. Along with the pre-training inspection, pre-training checks is one of the things you want to do. Is you want to, depending on the training, you might want to establish different types of standard operating procedures. Like, for example, for our basic small unit tactics training, where we're not going to be using live fire, we utilize blank firing adapters and these UTM training mags. Now, the mags are different because you cannot fit an actual live magazine in it. All you can fit in is either blanks or the UTM ammunition. So what that does is that allows you guys to train on hand, doing OP4, force on force, or just basic reactive contact if you set up targets out there in the woods using like green Ivan targets and stuff like that, and still leave a very minimal impact on the environment with it come to being, especially if you're on public land, damaging trees, damaging property and other things. That way you also cut down on the ammo expenditure as well, especially in recent times. So that's why using blanks is a really good thing to do. And also it adds that little bit of extra safety for you as well. That way if you have a little bit of a new guy or something like that, you can just give them a empty mag and blank firing adapter. That way they know that there's ready to go. So after you get pretty much the pre-training inspection, pre-training check done, you can move into the safety brief. And the safety brief is one of the big things. Now, you might want to devote longer time, shorter time. It depends on how many guys you got there. It depends on how many people you have coming, what the type of knowledge base is. So if you have the same 5 people coming every single day or every single month, then at that point you kind of can get a little bit shorter on the safety brief, but you still want to make sure you have the core things covered. You want to have your casualty collection point covered. You want to have your core medical response people on hand. So pretty much you have, like, say for example, you have somebody who has a TC3, a CLS, or a EMT training. That way you know that they're the people that are supposed to respond to them quickly. Well, another person is designated to make the call for backup. Also for, like, if you're calling for emergency aid, say there is a training accident with a firearm, you can actually say that it's a firearm training accident, not a shooting, because one's going to get you SWAT or the police, one's going to get you EMS. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So then after you proceed from the safety brief, then you also have, of course, before I go on, you also have environmental stuff into that too. So you got to also definitely be aware of that. So then you're going to, after you get done with that, make sure that you got everybody packed up in order, and then you can proceed to your training rally point. So that might be a mile down the road, it might be only 100 yards away, it might be right there where you're meeting at your vehicles, but you want to make sure to devote the amount of time that it's going to take to get to that location. So, like, for example, for us, the standard time for that location is going to be about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So that's one thing that you definitely want to take into account is that you have that time period that you're going to have to take into account for just moving. Because this whole thing, whenever it comes to organizing your timeline, is you want to stay very strict on the time. That way you cut down on the amount of downtime, because if you cut down on the downtime, you keep that training flow going throughout the event. Because once you hit that downtime, you'll hit a lull, and then that'll drop everybody's training mind, and then they'll start to get more into that meet and greet mindset, which you want to avoid at all costs. Then you can start, depending on the weather, you might be able to set up your shelters later on in the night, but for the most part, like right now in the winter, making sure that your shelters and your location is set up ahead of time is a much more bigger priority, especially with the sun going down sooner. That's why going and setting up your shelter ahead of time and getting that location scouted out, cleaned out, getting some wood set aside, getting a fire location set up and everything, that's going to be a very core thing to do, along while you're going to be having everybody take turns getting the shelter set up and then going and gathering firewood, scouting out security, and getting everything else set up as well. After that, you're going to start going into your main curriculum. Now, this timeline that I have set up right here, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it from back there or not, but I'll kind of give you an idea. This is going to be pretty much going over a basic small unit tactics course with implementation of a basic mission going in after it. Because one thing that you want to do is you want to kind of build everybody up to a point where, okay, we're using all this training that we did on Monday, Tuesday, or Saturday and Sunday, and then we're going to be commencing it into the next day or the day after that event. That way they get a chance to use all that knowledge that they just learned. So right now, individual movement and scanning, that way they know how to move through the woods as an individual. They know how to properly scan, different types of scanning methods, different type of movement methods, avoiding different types of obstructions instead of going into the open, taking a slower time to move through brush, how to move through the brush. The basic things like that is what you could do in going into a basic start, because you want to start out slow in more of the crawl, walk, run method rather than just trying to jump into the whole group movement and organizing and stuff like that, especially if you have different experience levels within your group. So after that, after you get done with the individual movement and the scanning, you can go on to buddy movements, which would be like your buddy bounding, buddy communications, movement in a two-man team. Things like that is what can go into the following stage of that. And as you're going through about this, you're still maintaining that time scale, like from the shelter to setup, 9:30 to 1000 hours, 1000 hours to 10:30, 10:30 to 11:30. So that entire time you're still maintaining that time account as you're going through. And as the instructor or the secondary instructor, that's one thing you're going to be having to do the entire time is as you're teaching is following along with that timeline and making sure that you guys are sticking to it as best as possible. The next thing after that is after you get done with that buddy movement, which is going to be building up that core aspect of working in two-man teams, you can move into four-man fire team drills. And what that does is that allows you guys to start getting into buddy bounding. Or if you actually do have more than 8 guys, you may have a squad level, you could then integrate this on a larger scale to where you have 2 instructors teaching 2 different four-man teams, and then you could implement that force-on-force training with the blanks. Safely, of course. You always want to be sure to have those extra bit of security measures and extra bit of safety measures. Then after that, depending on how you guys want to work it, you can go and break into chow after breaking away from those four-man fire team drills, which would be taking into the account of the individual and buddy team movement and incorporating into the four-man unit. And then with that, you can start getting into formations and stuff like that afterwards. But that's kind of getting into more of a small tactics course rather than just getting an overlay of how to organize it. Then after that, you want to initiate a small amount of time to give everybody a time to get chow. You want to make sure that throughout the time that everybody's staying hydrated. You don't want anybody getting dehydrated or getting overheated or anything like that. So you want to devote around 15 to 30 minutes depending on what your time allotment is. So for this right here, you would have that four-man fire team move from 1130 to 1230. Then you have from 1230 to 1300. And then you can move on to ambush training and reactive contact drills. And this is where that force-on-force training really comes into play, because you could have two different groups of 4-man, or you could have 2 different groups of 2-man implementing those same skill sets that they just put into play against each other. So that's, again, why I like using blanks as well over airsoft or anything else. So after you get done with that ambush reactive contact drill, which you want to devote a little bit more time to, which is going to be like 1300 to 1500 or 2 hours or so, then you want to have an after-action report of everything that you've done so far throughout the day. And what that means is you're pretty much going to sit down, get everybody circled up, and they're going to kind of go over some of the good things that everybody saw, some of the bad things that everybody saw, and kind of build up upon it so that you can make the next event even better, or even the next part of the day even better as well. So after that would be finishing up establishing your patrol base setup, or you can start setting up security along with that as well. Because what that does is that allows you guys to make sure that your campsite is set up, that you've got everybody set up for security, you've got a security protocol initiated, and also you have your passphrase set up as well. So for that, you want to spend a good couple hours. For that, we normally devote 1.5 hours to 2 hours, because remember, we got to take into account of the time allotment that you've got, because for the most part, we only have about 24 hours to 18 hours at the most to do all this training and then get everybody packed up and leaving back to their homes. So again, you got to make sure to allot for that amount of time as well. So after setting up for your patrol base and your security, Then you can move on to chow and then a secondary after action report as well to make sure that everybody understands their position, what they're supposed to be doing at the patrol base or campsite, if you will. And with doing that, that allows you to get kind of a feel for how everybody's feeling, make sure that you as the instructor is doing everything okay, making sure everybody else is doing all right, and then moving on to the next part of the event while giving yourself a chance to recuperate, get your paperwork in order, get your thoughts in order, and then move on to the next event. Because then you can move on to like issuing a warno for the op4 mission that you'd be conducting the next morning. That way you're getting everybody a chance to get ready for it, maybe run through some more rehearsals as a fire team or as buddy team, depending on how many people you've got. And what that would be doing is then, after an hour for the prep for the issue of the warno, breaking down the teams, issuing the squad leaders for each side or the single squad leader, then you would go back into the mission prep for the following day. And for that, you still want to get an extra 2 hours, so that would go like from 2000 to 2100 hours to give everybody that extra little bit of time to get their gear prepped, make sure that their weapon system is clean, make sure that they've got enough amount of blanks or enough amount of UTM ammunition for that force-on-force training, and they can move on from there into the night. So after that is pretty much going to be your kind of downtime to where you're going to have your guys start getting set up for Firewatch, going through their Firewatches. So for that would be like from 2100 to 0500, so like from 2100 to 2300, from 2300 to 0100, that kind of thing. And then at 0500 to 0530, kind of go through policing the patrol base or the campsite, making sure you guys aren't leaving any mess, making sure that your guys' fireplace is properly put out, making sure that all your guys' gear is properly packed up, make sure that you've got everything and you're not leaving anything behind. And then you can move on to doing the mission. So you can start out like down here from 0600 to 0700, conducting a recce of the objective, whatever you have set up for that. Then from 0700 to 0730, after they get back from the recce, they can complete a salute report and then add that into the MET-TC. And that would allow the squad leaders to decide how they want to proceed. If they want to do an ambush, if they want to do a flank, if they want to do a direct assault, if they want to just observe, things along those lines. It depends on what the amount of force they're going through, because you want to always add that extra little bit of variety, and you don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. You want to always try to maintain a little bit of difference as you're going throughout different training events. Then after that, after you would go ahead and commence the mission, however the squad leader decides to go about it. Then once you get done, you would have your post-training inspection, post-training check. What that would do is that would allow your guys is to go through, check their gear, make sure they didn't lose a nod, make sure they didn't lose mags, make sure they didn't lose weapon light, things like that, because that stuff can happen. So if that happens, then you have to kind of form a line, go back and police the area, make sure that you recover the lost item, or if the item is just written off as a loss, if it's a small thing like a pack of glow sticks or something like that. But you still want to not try to leave anything behind. After that, you would have the mission after action report. So what you're going to do through that is like your squad leaders from each side is going to kind of go over the things that they saw that were wrong, the things that they saw that were good between their individual units, and then they'll kind of say, okay, here's what your team did wrong, what your team could have done, what my team did wrong, what your team could do. So again, you're just constantly getting to that individual and group feedback into each other so that each person sees where they can continue to grow, because you don't want to get into that semblance of normalcy to where everybody's just getting kind of content with their skill sets or getting relaxed. You want to continue that constant strive to grow as an individual and as a group. Even if it's just small, like, oh, we were able to bound a little bit better the last time during the mission than we were at the beginning of the day. So that's why you just want to keep building up those skill sets and that opportunity. So after you have your after action report, everybody goes through, gives a little bit of a con and a pro to what they've learned. Then you could go into the rally at the primary rally point where you guys left your vehicles, or if you guys are already at the vehicles, then you can start preparing for departure, and then you have your departure time that you want to have everybody departed from. And as the instructor, you want to make sure that everybody's gone, nobody's been stuck in the mud or anything like that, or everybody's completely gone, everybody's ready to go, and everybody's safe. And then after that, one thing that I like to do is I like to make sure that everybody kind of gets in contact with each other a couple hours later to make sure everybody's gotten home and everybody's safe and nothing's happened on the ride home. So this is pretty much a basic overview of a carbon copy of one of the events that we hold through our group. And I just kind of want to give you guys an idea for whenever you guys want to host a group, you guys host a training event, to kind of give you guys core basic building blocks for your foundation. And if you guys have any opinions or any comments that you guys want to add it on to this right here, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. I know that this kind of breaks away from a lot of the standard military field training exercise doctrine, especially in the amount of time constraint that you have, because for most of us, we can't devote weeks at a time to training events. We can only devote maybe 1 or 2 days at a time. So that's why you want to try to definitely capitalize on your time whenever it comes to this, and kind of try to have as little downtime as possible. So I really appreciate you guys watching. I just kind of wanted to get it out and get another video posted for you guys, because I know that I've been kind of busy with my work and everything else. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys got a little bit of building blocks, with, especially with everything going on with the Patriot community. A lot of people are saying, oh, I'm getting requests here and there for more members to join. I'm looking at starting up a group. How do I start it? And things like that. So these are definitely some of the basic skill sets you want to have for starting out an event and making sure the event is successful when it comes to holding it. So I really do appreciate you guys watching. I'm looking forward to reading the comments down below, to where you guys can kind of give me some feedback on what you think as well. I'm constantly striving to improve my skill set as well. So I do appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great night. And I appreciate you guys for watching. I always do. So thank you.